Hi. Thanks for taking the time to watch this introduction video. I'm really excited about this series. I think it's going to be beneficial, and I'm just going to talk about a few things that I think are important premises to understand on why this will work and why you might want to use it. And also I want to cover how I suggest you use it. Okay, so first of all, as with any reading that you consume online, you know that it's up to you to use your own intuition and discernment to decide if something is pertinent to you. And this is no different. We are doing something a little bit different with the readings, but it's still important that you come to this tool as a sovereign being taking responsibility for yourself. Okay? Every bit of work that you're doing is something that you will be able to take credit for. This is just a tool, so how you use it matters, okay? I have some notes here, so you'll see me glancing over. I just don't want to forget anything really important for this. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to be using readings to either activate you in some sort of shadow that you have ready to heal, or help you reprogram your resonance towards something that you prefer, something that is in the highest good of yourself and everyone else. Now, the reason why I'm talking about reprogramming, and the reason why it matters if you get triggered and if you're going to do some shadow work, is because when we're born into the world, we are programmed by the environment that we're born into. So there are a lot of the programs that we have currently running in our society that actually limit us, that may cause suffering, and that may cause us to live in a state of lack, thinking that we're not enough or that we don't have enough. Sometimes when we're brought into families where there's dysfunctional relating, it can affect how we feel about ourselves and how we value ourselves or not. Sometimes when we have very traumatic experiences, this can overwhelm our system and we can get energy stuck that is unprocessed. And when that happens, the energy stays within our field and will get thrown ahead to the future for us to deal with it at a time that we may be more prepared to do so. So if you have like a traumatic experience and it's unprocessed and it forms like a trigger, when you get triggered into that energy, it will repeat the pattern. And so you may think and feel the same way you would have during the original traumatic experience, which may or may not fit the current experience. The reaction that you have is set off in an almost automatic way. You don't have to think about it. And sometimes it can feel like you're overreacting when you look at it from retrospect. It's simply because that energy is still waiting to be processed. Another thing that can happen is we can simply have a misunderstanding about ourselves or others through our upbringing or through life experiences and the conclusions we make. And when this happens, this will also create a loop of energy where we will repeatedly experience that same scenario, giving us another chance to look at an old thing in a new way. So when we know the truth of something, it creates balance. And the truth is something that's not really causing us to feel limited or lack or lash out at others. There's no war when it comes down to the truth of things. The war is created in our misunderstandings and our programming of lack and there's not enough and things like that. And we are coming to a point on earth here that we can evolve out of that. We've done that for a long, 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 long time. We know what it entails. We know what it causes. We've studied it to the degree that we needed to, and now we are evolving. And so if you're here on earth at this time, you came to be part of this evolution. And so one of the things that we're doing in order to help us evolve is we are breaking out of these conditioned ways of being, the patterns that we've created due to the beliefs that we had, due to the environment that we grew up in, due to the experiences that we had that were based on war and lack, and there's not enough, and I'm not enough. These can now be broken free from, and that is why we are learning how to do shadow work, learning how to heal ourselves, and learning how to break these patterns in favor of something else. The truth is that we are not limited and that limitless possibilities exist. The truth is that it's only our programming that limits us into thinking that there's not enough, that we're not enough, or that we are stuck. And if we come into this knowing that one of the important pieces of doing this work in our evolution is becoming sovereign, then we know that anything that we're doing is something we want to take responsibility for. Meaning when you come to use one of these readings, it is a tool that you are using. So you're taking responsibility for using it the way that you use it. And you're learning to use your own intuition and your own discernment to decide if this is something that's relevant for you. And that may take practice at first, and that's okay. It's okay to practice with a tool that you may not be fully comfortable with, and others of you are very comfortable with it. And it doesn't have anything to do with your value as a person on where you are in that process. Okay? One moment. So this tool that is being offered works in a couple of ways. If you use online readings, pick-a-card readings in general, you may feel like this is just kind of like those. But in actuality, this is a bit different. It's designed to be a little bit different. It's not a predictive astrology. It's not a predictive reading. However, it may sound like that, and that's why it's important for you to use your discernment and your intuition. Because there's two ways these readings are meant to work for you. And one is to activate you into a wounding pattern or a coping mechanism that you have been living in and that you may or may not be fully aware of, meaning it could trigger you. And when it triggers you, you are being given an opportunity to work through that energy, to neutralize it, to get above it, and to heal from any of the limitation or the pattern of limitation or the avoidance of pain that you might otherwise have been stuck reacting in. So in this way, we consider an activation in one of our wounding patterns a gift, because we're coming as sovereign beings ready to take responsibility for ourselves and do our healing work and eliminate the limitations that we may have found ourselves in. In other words, if you've grown up in a family that's really poor and you're trying to have wealth, you understand that there are some of those patterns that are in your subconscious that may be keeping you in lack, because not all the parts of you believe that you can have wealth. And so the trigger identifies one of those beliefs for yourself, one of those wounds that you have, and allows you to release the energy from that and neutralize it so that it is no longer limiting you. It really is a gift. It's a gift when you are prepared and know how to use it, right? A lot of other videos on my channel, I've talked again and again about how to use a formula to release yourself from a trigger. And I will reiterate that formula and those steps within the readings that I feel are needing them as we go along. But if you want to practice, you might want to look at my channel and find another video, whatever you're called to, and start practicing with the formula that's shared. Now, the other thing this can do is I can give you a reading that offers you another possibility. And it's an alchemy reading that takes everything up to the highest timeline that's possible for you on that. Meaning it's not going to be the story that you've been living. It's going to be something that's the win-win-win for all. And you could actually classify this as a fantasy, right? Because it's not reality and it's only a potential. But if you resonate with it, then you know that exists in your energy. And that's another reason why you're going to be discerning with your own intuition and your own discernment. You're going to decide if something resonates with you. If it resonates with you, even though it's not the current reality you're living, you are likely attracted to it so that you could help all the parts of you that are not quite on board with believing it to get on board with believing it, to bring yourself more into full resonance on the topic, to allow it to be your reality. And in these readings, it's perhaps true that not every aspect of that reading would be in resonance with you, so you'll just take the parts that are, right? If I'm telling you a reality where you can find that you're getting along in harmony with all of your family members, including mother, brother, sister, father, and we're talking about that in the reading, and you know that you actually have a family member that's passed on, and that you're not going to be in a relationship with them, and that doesn't resonate for you, it's okay to exclude that part. That's the power of your own sovereignty, of your discernment. You say, oh, that part's not for me. And you decide if the rest is or what parts of the rest are, as an example. And so what this does is help you become resonant with a reality that is more preferable to you. The reason why it's really important to help yourself do this through your own intuition and discernment and whether or not it resonates is because we are unique beings and you do have limitless possibilities. I'm simply opening up a possibility that may be more preferable and a lot more neutral than the one you may have been in. And something else that is important to take into consideration is that even though you may have a timeline that I'm talking about that is more preferable and you would like to resonate at that frequency, and it feels true for you, it may also be true that your soul has an agenda where it needs you to live out something different before you get there. So it might resonate with you and you may recognize that it does. However, your reality doesn't shift right away. And the reason for that can be that your soul has an intention, an intended experience for you to have before you can line up with that resonance. It doesn't mean that you can't utilize the reading. It doesn't mean that it's useless to you. It's the reason why when we do these, we want to always state that we are asking to line up with this or something better. Meaning, even when it's a preferred reality that we're resonating with and that we're having the reading for, so that we can help ourselves resonate there more fully, we are still leaving it open for something better. Because we don't have the biggest picture view. We don't know our soul's full intention all the time. And there may be something that we're not aware of, and we do not want to limit ourselves at all. So we want to include the phrase, this or something better. And so we'll be doing that throughout the readings. And that is the reason. When I do that in the reading, it's not something you want to skip over. You want to include this or something better for yourself, because you do not want to be limited. You don't want to take a side quest down a path that actually puts you out of alignment with your soul's purpose, right? Okay. Let me see what else my notes say here. There are specific steps in these readings, and one of the steps is to put ourselves in a meditation, to sync both hemispheres, and to do that question at the end there, to do the question within the reading, this or something better, and at the end to consider, what do I know now that I would not have otherwise known? What do I know about myself that I was not fully aware of before? All of these steps are important to get the full benefit of what this tool is. But you are discerning and you are using your own intuition, so you decide what parts of this tool you need to use and how you need to use it. You can adapt, you can make it your own. These are guidelines and they are here for a reason, and they will serve you well if you use them. However, can adapt, and the other thing to consider is if there's a part of you trying to avoid one of the steps, you may want to look at that, because it might be tied to you trying to avoid fully healing or fully resonating where you could potentially. For instance, if there is a hidden benefit for you to not fully line up with the reprogrammed reality, you may skip a step, and it's totally your subconscious may be trying to distract you from it so that you won't fully line up with it and that you can keep it in fantasy. And sometimes the fantasy can serve us as like a dopamine hit or something like that, where it just kind of makes us feel good for a minute. I'm not saying it's wrong to utilize this way. I'm saying it's important to understand that that's what you're doing, because we always want to increase our self-awareness and understand ourselves well and befriend ourselves and give ourselves what we need in the best way that we can. So notice if you do skip over some of the steps, why you're doing it. Everything is an opportunity for some self-reflection and self-inquiry here. Okay. I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I didn't forget anything important. So sometimes that which we prefer is actually what our ego desires, and our soul might have a different desire. That can happen. So recognize when you don't fully line up with the reality, there could be that as a reason as well. I'm not saying that it's wrong to want to line up with your ego desires, though. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying there may be some instances where your soul's desire is in conflict with your ego's desire. And one of the things that I'm talking about here when I'm asking you to self-reflect on the reasons why or why not you're doing this or that step is because as we get to know ourselves, we gain our confidence and we have a healthy self-esteem, and we can trust more easily whether or not this is good for us or not. So I'm inviting us to also identify our needs. Why do we need this tool? Is there a need we're trying to get met by using it? And just know that for ourselves. And then identify, how are we getting that need met here? And this is just so that we're very clear on who we are and who we are being when we use this tool. Because there is a way that we could use this tool to avoid allowing that reality and to live in fantasy instead. And the inquiry that I'm asking you to make within yourself about the needs that you have and how you're getting them met is the only fail-safe we have for you to not miss that for yourself and to not get stuck in using it as a sort of a crutch that might get in your way. Is this tool for you? This tool might not be for you. When you're utilizing your self-inquiry to reflect on your needs, you're going to be one step closer to knowing whether this tool is for you. But it's okay if it's not for you. It is okay to use this to live in the fantasy before you are ready to manifest it or live in the reality of it. It is appropriate to use this tool to live the fantasy only in order to extract experiential data from it. Meaning maybe you don't really want to live that in life, but you do want to live out the experience of it. Or you want to participate in the reading so that you can just understand and maybe have compassion for others who have had that experience. Maybe they're in your reality around you, and maybe it's beneficial for you to have a different perspective of other people's experience. It is entirely appropriate to utilize this tool for that reason. So the reason that we are reprogramming is to train our resonance into a new possibility, and we're using storytelling to do this. The intention is always the win-win-win, meaning every story I tell you is going to have the win-win-win. I win, you win, we all win. So your story is going to be an upgrade from what you've already been living. Now, in the story you've been living, maybe you broke up with the ex and lived happily ever after, and the ex regretted it for the rest of their lives. Well, that's not going to be a story that we're going to tell, because we are alchemizing and we're bringing everything up to the win-win-win for all. So in the story we tell, even the ex gets to live happily ever after. They don't have to just stay stuck in regret, that they utilize the experience for their own good. We're not at war anymore in these new stories. I'm not saying it's wrong if you've participated in readings or gravitate towards readers that vilify the other, that blame the other. It's okay if you've been there and done that. This is the tool that you use when you want to get above that, when you're ready to graduate into the win-win-win, to leave behind war, to alchemize those lower densities. Okay? Because the story you tell is the story you live. And what we're going to be doing is putting ourselves into the vibration of allowing the new reality. So there may be some things that we've been doing in order to disallow it, to disallow ourselves to line up for it, line up with it. But we're going to get all the parts of ourselves into the space where we allow that reality, whether it be wealth or a happy relationship or happy family, a career that you enjoy, that makes enough money, whatever it may be. We're going to allow that to come into our reality. It's okay to disallow the parts that don't apply. You discern which part is for you or not. Now, when it is part of you, meaning it does resonate with you, but you prefer it not to be a part of you, there will be a need to do the work on this aspect. So that's where we get aware of our shadow. Now, you may or may not be triggered or activated into the shadow. You can still do the work on it, even if you're not activated. If you recognize it as a shadow that you have, you'll still be able to do the work on it. Now, it's important to know some of the common coping mechanisms for the situation that can help you identify whether or not you're activated. So sometimes something is pertinent to you. I'll say it, and there'll be part of you that wants to deny it, that doesn't want to look at it. But it is your trigger, it is your wound, and it's in your shadow, meaning you haven't put the full light on it yet. If you can be brave enough to look at it, we can work through it, but sometimes our ego has this way of distracting us from it. So I'm going to, right now, give you a list of ways that could or should clue you in to the fact that you might be doing one of these things that is distracting you from knowing that you could heal something right now in the reading. And you might want to actually write these down. You want to be really familiar with these items, okay? Denial. And the denial isn't just, oh, that doesn't pertain to me, and you don't feel a thing about it. It's when you feel offended and then you go, that doesn't apply to me. But it hurts inside, like you're disgusted by it. You want to push it away. That's your clue. Denial. Projection, meaning, oh, that's not me, that's someone else. That is someone else. I would never do that. It could still be a pattern within you that needs healing because you may have a judgment holding it in, and you may only allow it to be seen outside of you. So if you know that there are a lot of other people in your life that are that thing or have that thing, the reading is still for you. You can still utilize this tool, whether it be to bring yourself out of judgment and into compassion, or just to understand those around you a little bit better. Distracting from it, right? Like when it's time to heal something, it's like, oh, all of a sudden you remember that you want some coffee, and oh, you haven't eaten today and you're going to go eat, and oh, you've got to call somebody back. Whatever it may be, the ego will sometimes start thinking of all these other things to try to distract you from actually addressing the issue. So know that that's a normal thing that the ego does, because the ego's job is to protect you from having to feel this. It has a whole coping mechanism orchestrated that you've been living in for a long time to try to avoid having to feel this. It will try to distract you again. So this is why you want to be really conscious of it when you catch yourself and you go, oh, I was just in the middle of this and now I'm feeling myself distracted and pulled away. I'm going to redirect myself. I'm going to take my free will and use my intentional focus here. Justification. If I say something in the reading and you start justifying why you're doing it, and there's a strong feeling about it and an avoidance, if there's some uncomfortable feeling below that justification, I mean, I'm not talking about an explanation. You can explain why something is the way it is, but a justification is why it is this way and why it should be this way. And the truth just is, it needs no defense. So if you hear yourself start defending yourself, that's a clue that you have something that you can heal, that you can get above, that you can become neutral on. None of this means that you're wrong, by the way. Just because you get triggered, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means if it's time to heal it, you're ready to graduate out of that, meaning you're going to neutralize the energy and kind of compile the data that you learned from having had that experience in that loop of energy. And then you're going to kind of graduate up above it into a place where you have more free will and a bigger picture view. It doesn't mean the experiences that got you to here made you wrong, okay? Even if you would have preferred to do it some other way when you realized you could have, or when you realized that you were doing it another way that you didn't like. And you might learn that you had affected people negatively. It still doesn't mean that you were wrong, okay? This isn't about shaming and blaming ourselves, and those are clues that we've got something to heal, shaming and blaming. And if we go numb, like you just can't feel anything, If you notice that you have a dissociative state where you go numb and you just can't give a care about it, you can't even be curious about it, that might be an indication. Or bypass, meaning become logical about it so that you can talk yourself out of it, or understand it just logically without ever processing any of this uncomfortable feelings that might be associated with it. Not everything will have uncomfortable feelings associated with it, but a lot of it will. And if you decide that there's nothing emotionally for you to process through it, that should be one of these flags that say, oh, I might not be going deep enough. I might not be fully engaged in the process with this tool the way I could be. Okay? Now, of course, you must promise not to hurt yourself or anyone else while doing this process, because some of the uncomfortable feelings that we're going to be present with when we're doing a healing of a shadow might be anger, you know? It might be grief. It might be something where you don't yet have a healthy way of coping with that feeling. So you have to think about those things and only go into this process when you know that you have an acceptable way to deal with uncomfortable feelings, whether it's going to be to journal, to crumple up pieces of paper, to rip them up, to go for a walk, whatever it is for you. Make sure that you're responsible and mature enough to not harm yourself or anyone else when you go through this process. That's your responsibility, okay? When you've identified yourself as activated, it means that a coping mechanism or wounding pattern is currently active in your reality. This serves as an opportunity to process and release yourself from this pattern, which may have been long-standing and repeating in a reactive and unconscious state until now. You may also be activated into wounds that you are conscious of and ready to heal fully or heal another layer of. You know, we might hit on something and you're like, I thought I healed that years ago. Well, there might just be another aspect of it, another layer, you know, it happens. Now, some of the things that we'll do in these readings is we'll assign roles. Like, we're going to be using relationships and people in these readings. I have this idea because I kind of picture some of them to kind of be like a soap opera, you know? So it really could be quite entertaining and quite interesting to see how you place different people in the roles that I utilize in the storytelling. So you'll recognize readings will assign roles to you and others in order to activate and reprogram using various scenarios. Okay, so if I'm talking about a certain person in the reading who has this, and this kind of traits, you might recognize it as somebody in your life, and you might plug them into the scenario, right, in your story. Be like, oh, well, this about this person, right? Because remember, we're going to alchemize any of the limitation that we have on that person in our story. So by the end, whoever that is, we're going to bring them up to the highest version where they're in the win-win-win. Meaning you're not losing out in the scenario with them anymore, and neither are they. Okay? Just take the parts that apply to you. Even if the scenario does not exactly match your current reality, the tool is designed in such a way that you can still utilize the reading you resonate with in any way, including curiosity. Sometimes you may be led to having compassion for others, and sometimes they are going through that you may not have otherwise been aware of. Compassion for others and in something that they're going through. So meaning sometimes the reading is just going to bring you to having compassion for something someone is going through that you might not even have been aware of. Right? If I'm talking about a certain person with a certain energy and you plug them in and then we kind of explore their scenario and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that person was going through all that, you know? There could be a reading like that because this is done through storytelling and we're opening up possibilities, okay? It will always be done with the intention of bringing that person up to a higher timeline within your perspective. Okay, So the reading will either activate you in a wounding pattern or help you reprogram a new story, or both. Okay. Just scroll up here. Each reading session, like each video, is going to have a meditation in the beginning, and we're going to sync both sides of our brain, okay? It's as simple as this, okay? So I'm taking my left hand and putting it on my right knee, putting it back. Taking my right hand, putting it on my left knee, taking it back. And I'm doing this. This is simply syncing both sides of my brain. I'm doing this 11 times. I literally just chose that number. So do it however many times feels good to you. I would say at least 10. You know, we're also going to meditate. It's going to be like a guided thing. It's not going to be taking too long, you know. If you know that you're fully meditated before you come to the reading and you know your hemispheres are already synced, then go ahead and skip right into your pick. That's fine. But let me tell you, the reason that we're syncing both sides of our brain is because the changes that you make in the energy body will happen more easily when both sides of the brain are synced. It's really important. So don't skip it. The meditation is going to just get you into a more relaxed state so that when you're participating, that you're picking up on the things that you're meant to be picking up on, that you're quiet enough, your mind is relaxed enough that you can hear your own intuition. Okay? Pay attention to whether or not you want to skip one of these steps, okay? And pay attention to whether or not you're resistant in the process of any of it. Because a lot of times there is a hidden benefit to resisting and to staying in the pattern that you're in. And you may not even be aware of the fact that you are benefiting in some way that makes it so even though it's limiting you and even though you'd like to let it go, you won't let it go because there's still a benefit to you. And these are some of the things that can become that can come into our awareness when we talk to ourselves about the needs that we have and that we're getting met through this process. Because that can reveal to us some of our hidden benefits to keeping some of these patterns that we might uncover. So you, for instance, uncover the pattern, or maybe you even know you have a pattern like smoking cigarettes and you want to quit. And there may be some sort of hidden benefit to smoking that you haven't realized about it that is making it hard for you to actually follow through and quit. Besides the physical dependence that your body can go through, there's some other benefit that you might be getting. So there's a need you have that is not met yet. And so when we address those things and look at the need that we're trying to get met, then we can all of a sudden loosen the energy, neutralize it, and then quitting becomes a lot easier. Then it's so much easier to just make the choice, and then there's nothing inside of us trying to bug us and like tell us to go do that thing again, you know, because it's just neutral. We've already processed it. It's dealt with. So that's the importance of looking at our hidden benefits when we're having difficulty with any of the things that come up, whether it be reprogramming to a new reality. What's the benefit of staying in the current reality? Or whether it be healing one of the shadows or a wounding pattern that, or a coping mechanism that has come to your awareness. What's the benefit of keeping it that way? This question can really unlock things for you. Like, you know, say if you were smoking and you didn't realize that one of the benefits that you get is that you get to be social with other people who have to go to a certain area to smoke, and then you end up meeting new people and having conversations with new people, and you don't realize that having conversations with new people is really important to you. It's like, oh, I have a need to interact with a lot of people. You know, some people actually have that built into their experience, that they do need to interact with a lot of different people in order to have the experiences that they're meant to have for their soul. And if you don't realize that smoking cigarettes is the way you get that need met, then when you try to quit, it might be really hard to quit because you haven't yet met the need of making sure that you can still interact with a lot of new people. So how can you otherwise get that need met? Now, all of a sudden, you're getting that need met because you decided to go to a library meeting, or the town hall meetings once a month from now on, or something like that. And then all of a sudden, it's more tolerable for you to quit the habit that you don't want, the cigarettes, because at least that other thing is taken care of, Because your soul's intentions do weigh in on this, sometimes we're not fully aware of, on this human level, what our soul is actually intended for us to experience, or why that is something that we're experiencing at all. All of the experiences are going to have some gold in them for us to extract. And so that's why I'm saying it's important to know that we're not shaming or blaming ourselves or acting like we were wrong to have had these experiences, even if we have identified it as something that we prefer not to do. For the time that we did it and for the experiences we had while doing it, those are going to be relevant. And so we're going to take that experience with us. We're going to love all the parts of ourselves through this so that we're integrating all the experiences we had. And any uncomfortable feelings are now able to pass right through us because we are no longer in resistance to it. We're allowing ourselves to be the conduit that energy needs to move through in order for us to line up with the thing that we do prefer. Okay, so this is really exciting. If you have any questions, feel free. I will answer any questions, maybe in subsequent videos or in a comment, depending on what's appropriate. So this video will be linked in all of the subsequent videos that are released for this series. And if you have a topic that or a scenario that you'd really like me to tell a story about, and see if we could do some healing or reprogramming on it, I would really welcome that. Remember, this is for entertainment purposes, and it's just meant to be helpful and wise. So it's a self-healing tool, meaning it's a tool that you can use and reflect on and reflect through my storytelling in order to do the healing on yourself. I'm not claiming to heal you, okay? That's all on you, and you get full credit for doing so. And I'm excited for you to do so. So thank you for being here.